Up next, we take a look at some recent research that suggests that people may be beginning to speak and conversate in a more in an AI chatbot type of dialect. Tunde, for our second part of our discussion, we're looking at this research that suggests people are talking like AI chatbots now. So we recently saw a piece in Gizmodo, and that presented some findings that suggested that people in whether it be speeches or just people talking was starting to resemble chatbot speak. And even so, like they're talking about some Reddit forum moderators that we're having a harder and harder time distinguishing whether you had bot generated posts that they're trying to remove, or this was just a person who either used a bot to create it or was just sounding like a bot. So, tell me, do you buy this theory that humans in their communication, in their verbal communication, are starting to sound like AI chatbots sound?
Yes.
Okay. So what makes you say that?
Oh, do you want me to talk about it now?
Hey, man.
Have a show.
I thought you were ready to rock, man.
I think that's what I'm saying. Yes, I buy that human kind of speech patterns and things. Let's put it this way: people that expose themselves a lot to AI chatbots, that their behavior from a speaking perspective in this way of looking at it would mimic what they're being exposed to, and from the chatbot. And I think the word mimic there I think is important because especially I would say not only as humans, as mammals, right? The type of animal we are, through childhood, mammals learn a lot through mimicking the older people in the group, right, or the animals or whatever. So I think that the idea that we're influenced by the inputs in our surroundings is not a surprise. The more that I'm learning as I age about all of this is that, yes, we as humans are not static.
Yeah.
Even during our lifetime, we are malleable and we can change, over time.
I'll tell you this. I think that this is probably the most obvious finding that we'll see in a long time. And here's why. That people say oftentimes, I'm an attorney by trade. So people say, lawyers start sounding alike. They start talking alike. Or you're in the financial services game. And you guys will all use certain phrases or certain, the way you phrase this or the vocabulary that, you use or that attorneys use. There's this overlap. And because you're reading the same materials, you're having conversations amongst others in the field, and so you guys start sounding alike. And attorneys, we start sounding alike. We start using words that only attorneys use. And so to me, it's like, well, yeah, of course, if you're interacting with chatbots a lot, and you're going to start picking up the way that the chatbot puts words together or words that the chatbot favors. Part of the thing that was very interesting to me about this, though, was that how the chatbots, these are large language models. So they're not coming up with this stuff. They are trained on lots and lots and lots of human speak from wherever that's coming from. And then from that training, they then produce their outputs. So they're learning how to put together words from us. And then in turn, then some of us are learning to put together words from them. But where it was really interesting was that they're saying that a lot of chatbots get a lot oftentimes from certain parts of the world. They might get, there's a lot of text in Nigeria that they're pulling and they may use certain vocabulary, certain words. They use delve a lot or something like that in that country. And then that will then spread and start popping up in other places where people start using that vocabulary also a lot. And again, not because people are trying to mimic it. It's because that's what you're exposed to. That's what you're engaging with. In the same way, like I said, that certain professions will have, and they'll all start sounding the same. So to me, I when I saw it, I'm like, yeah, of course. You're just basically you're interacting, and your kind of social circle now involves an AI chatbot.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm just thinking as you talk about Nigeria, I read that too, and I'm thinking the revenge of the African continent on everybody else. In 100 years, everybody's going to be, dealing
sounding
with
like a Nigerian
stuff. Yeah. So, but no, it's interesting. I'm laughing too because when you talk about my industry, there's certain words and phrases that, like you're saying, they do pop up, and then people start using them. And you're right; they take a hold. And my least favorite one, which I love to bash, is the term basis points, because I remember when I first heard that like 15 years ago. Some mutual fund wholesaler trying to sell me on their product, and they're like trying, because it makes you sound smarter, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh yeah, this fund outperformed that fund over there by 135 basis points, so it sounds all grandiose, right? Like, oh shit, that's a lot. And then you're like, that's 1.35%. Like, you want me to take all this extra risk over 10 years just to make an extra 1.3? No, I'm good. I'll be the tortoise over here.
But it sounds better when he said,
but it sounds all smart, right? Like, yeah, we outperformed this other firm by 25 basis points.
Yeah,
and I'm sitting there talking to my client, like, that means 0.25%. So it's the kind of thing that's why it always annoys me when people use that. I'm like, dude, I see what you're doing.
You're not smarter than everyone else. Yeah,
and I think that is, I think that I've heard this term. I don't know if it's called code switching or something, that people accuse sometimes people who are of certain group. I'll use the English language. I'm sure every language has an example of this, but let's say, when you're in front of, I think that honestly, as Black Americans, we and I'm not saying that to bring up anything else. I'm just saying that culturally, we understand this nuance because you and I specifically, can be around a group of certain Black Americans and really our jargon will start going more towards more Ebonics and more that kind of cultural jargon. But then when you show up in a trial in front of a judge, or I show up to do a presentation on PowerPoint in front of 30 people talking about the stock market, I'm not using Ebonics and that type of jargon. I'm using proper English. And so sometimes people can be accused of code switching when they do that. I would say, at least personally, I'll speak for me, I don't really consciously think of that. It's more of a comfort level wherever you're at, and also understanding the audience you're in front of.
That's the piece, though, right? There's the audience. Like, if I go into a certain circle and start talking like an attorney, it's like, well, who are you trying to impress? Exactly. I'm over here using the word base. Like, if you showed up, like, that guy's a great free throw shooter. He's 1.2 more basis points than the other guy. And you're in a sports bar. People are like, yo, man, get out of here with that. So a lot of it's your audience, though. Like, the code switch thing has a negative connotation, but a lot of times it's like, well, hold up. The point of communication is to get your point through to the audience that you're communicating with. So if you're over here,
I'm going to try that. That's why I'm laughing. I go to a sports bar. I might surprise you and say, James, I got 3 new clients.
An 8.4 basis point chance of making this kick.
No, but I might surprise you. I might come back and say, James, I got 3 new clients doing that shit. I'm doing it again next week.
They were very impressed.
They thought I was all smart, man. They were like, damn, you must be good with this stuff. Let me give you all my money right here at the bar.
No, that's good stuff. That's good stuff. So yeah, I think the reference the reference to the kind of the whether you switch from a slang to more proper, depending on your setting, that's something that, as you said, a lot of times people do that without even thinking about it. Sometimes people do, So, and I think that the code switching accusation a lot of times comes when people are saying that somebody's doing that intentionally, and that's getting a little bit into somebody's head, though. In my mind,
I know, that's what I'm saying.
But nonetheless, it does show, though, that kind of what we're around can influence us in terms of how we even communicate. And so, I see this, though. It's like many people in our society now are very excited about how AI may change the world, and do the, hey, people, talking silliness like, oh, nobody will have to work anymore, like that kind of stuff. But just also in general, just making people more productive, which they're onto something. I'm not saying that they're wrong, but what I think this raises is the possibility is well, not just raises, but it kind of confirms for the people who have already talked about this, is that AI, the biggest change AI might have is the change that it makes on us. And so, so I'll kick that to you first. What do you think? Like the kinds of change, whether it be this or any kind of other things. Like, how do you think AI may be sizing up to change us as humans as the biggest change that it makes in the world?
So let me try and tie this in, because I think that what we just were joking about, I think, is one of the realities. I do think that, and you make a good example with this, the word delve, from the, I would say, maybe overuse of that word in the English language by Nigerian English speakers, but because they've been hired by OpenAI to do, be the humans that help troubleshoot and all that with ChatGPT, unintentionally, it's kind of a feedback loop. their activities are now causing Americans to use that word more.
So it's
That was my
causing a
joke about.
convergence, actually, a
Yeah.
convergence
So
among
so so
disparate
here
places.
so yeah so there's a term in the article. That's why I was said it's I want to get
See,
to this
I'm
point. It's
using the
very
word
interesting.
convergence now. Like, so is that
Yeah.
AI in my head, man?
I don't know. I would say that you used it appropriately in that topic. So in that
That's not the
sentence.
question, though. Would I
Um,
have used that? Well, I don't know. I don't use a lot of AI, so I'm not the best.
yeah, I was gonna say and also what other word would he have used, right? So in that one. So, but anyway, real quick, the quote that they said is it's more likely an example of chatbots quote smuggling cultural practices into places they don't belong, close quote. And that's what I thought very interesting. The word delve is an English word.
Yeah.
But if culturally in Nigeria it's used more than it is in America, this idea of smuggling it in I thought was interesting. It's like through this back channel of the AI, they may unintentionally change our speaking culture and use that word more. So
So AI is
what
like
that got
hip
me
hop.
thinking of, James.
So AI is like hip
Oh
hop.
yeah,
AI is going to bring all these words from a particular culture and then put them all into another culture. And
great point. Hip hop's another great example of that. And so here's what I want to throw this back to you for your thought, because then my galaxy brain went and said, this reminds me a lot of the concept from Sapiens of the unification theory. It's another check on that kind of marker along the way that the internet is bringing humans culture together more. And maybe this is an example where in 100 years, if we took a time machine, out of however many billion humans there are in the world, think about it. Already we have billions of humans speaking the same language. We have, I think, 1 billion people that speak Spanish in the world between South America and Spain. We know we have 1.5 billion people that speak Chinese. You got another 1 billion people that speak Hindu, or I don't want to botch it, but with the name of the Indian language. And then we have probably 500 million people in the world that speak English between America, Canada, Australia, England, all that. So what if we, in 100 years, you have 75% of all humanity? Let's say there's 10 billion people in the world, 7.5 billion all speak in the same way. And that's what I'm saying.
what if
That's
that
what I
way
thought
was
of.
invented by AI? What if AI merged all the languages together and then?
No, hey, it's funny. Let's not even go to. So, what if AI did that with a religion? Let me not go there. But
Hey man, I think that was the plot of a Marvel movie, man. I don't know about that, man.
But hold on, but let's stick with religion. Maybe this is undoing the whole thing about the Tower of Babel. Maybe AI will bring us back to a unified.
Hey, maybe. But I'll say this: I think that you're definitely the idea and how it can, because it melds all these things together and then pushes them onto people all in a large space. Yeah, I think the convergence idea is a very good idea. The other thing I think about with this actually is the type of thinking that our brains will no longer do because of this. And like this also reminds me actually of that book Sapiens, and talks about how how a hunter-gatherer perceived the world versus how once people got into agriculture and then industrialized, how the things we see, the things we don't notice, stuff like that. So how our brains kind of work and process things, what's going on around us, changed depending on what we needed in order to survive, what we needed in order to thrive. And so to me, it's like it's on a lower level, it's kind of like the calculator, and how once people, use calculators, then the ability to do simple math in your head kind of deteriorated. Or even, you want to go a step further, well, not a step further, but a sidestep from that. It's like, growing up in the 90s, you may become very good at remembering phone numbers, like in your head, like, or, 90s, 80s, whatever. Like somebody gives you 7 numbers, you can remember them, and, like you can use it again, because you may be incentivized because, girl gives you a number and it's like, yeah, I want to have it. Now, I don't think that that's something that our brains are accustomed to doing. So whether it be simple math, and being able to do that quickly in your head, whether it be remembering phone numbers, it's like if we don't use things, our brains kind of like get rid of them. So whatever thinking that people intend or plan to to kind of offload onto AI engines, it's conceivable that we will become less capable of doing that type of thinking ourselves, or at least people that engage in that a lot. So that I think that kind of change is the kind of change that can make a big difference in terms of how societies, how people interact, how societies and cultures, the direction they go and so forth, is how it can influence the way that we either perceive what's going on around us or our capabilities as far as what we can think about, what we can conceive, what we can understand.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think that it's interesting, man. That's why I think that this is another example, like we've talked about with other things in these conversations we've had, that humans are malleable. And I think you make a very interesting point with the hip hop. And I think obviously,
I knew I'd get you with that one.
No, because we obviously are of that culture and we're of the generation that
we remember when it was nowhere. It was nowhere.
Exactly.
It was one city.
You had to sneak in a cassette tape in the late '80s into your room so your mom didn't hear you listening to all the F words and NWA. Because that was so new, right? Nobody made music like that before, And so let's not get the young people into Too Short, that vulgarity, but and Ice-T, but that's what I'm saying, is that we go from 30, 40 years ago, a culture that was really on the fringe of society, that now in today's world we have prominent figures in politics and entertainment and all that, and news people that use hip hop slang and jargon, and so that's why I say in 100 years, based on the way that the internet and this technology is permeating the world, that I think that's why I thought about that unification theory of, we could have much more of a monoculture globally because of this stuff in future, in the next 50 to 100 years. And so, that's,
I mean, like that.
It's interesting. I won't be alive to see it.
Every episode now, you keep ending it with something about some kind of morbid, comment, man. You gotta have a more uplifting message at the end of these. But no, I mean, the thing you said though about hip hop and how the wording has permeated in a lot of places around the world, I think is on point. I mean, and that's a smaller level though, again, because that's not omnipresent, so to speak, in terms of where everybody's accessing that in so many different ways. Like that's music, that's entertainment. So. And what we're doing here is potentially much more revolutionary. And I mean, again, I think that the insight itself that the biggest change that the AI may make in our world is the change that it makes in us or to us, is really the big takeaway here. And then what we're seeing right now is kind of maybe the beginnings of that. And we're only a couple of years in, of the large scale interactions with AI agents. So, I mean, it's like one of these things like buckle up, like the only thing we do know is that things tomorrow are not going to necessarily be what they were yesterday. And so the AI is one of these things. It's a change agent, and of the many that we've had throughout human times. And so here we go. And being able to observe the changes and talk about them is something that can be interesting sometimes. So, from that, I think we can wrap this show up. We appreciate everybody for joining us on this episode of Call Like I See It. Subscribe to the podcast, rate it, review it, tell us what you think, send it to a friend. Till next time, I'm James Keys.
I'm Tunde Ogunlana.
All right, we'll talk soon.